All right, folks, it is Wednesday afternoon. It is time to get started. Thank you all for being here. I'm Pepper, and if you are not familiar, this is our weekly Bible study for traders. And based off of the book that I wrote, I'll call it Trading with Joy. There's a link down in the description if you'd like to get one and follow along. First and foremost, I should have done this last week, and I completely forgot. So forgive me for that. That's not the right button. Y'all excuse me one second. It's over here, and that's the right button. If anybody out there, I even have a sticky note. I was supposed to do a funny little thing there. If anybody out there has a prayer request, please let me know. If you want to put it in the chat, or if you're uncomfortable with that, you can send it to me in an email or however you want to get in touch with me. Let me know. We'll certainly add you to the list. And brother, I got you from this morning. That said, let us dive right into it. So this week we are on chapter 3 or chapter 4. This is the week 4. I think we're on chapter 4. I didn't actually look at the chapter numbers. So it's funny. This week is on gentleness. And when I set out to write this book, after I had come up with this, well, I say come up with, God gave me this sort of flash of, hey, I wonder if the fruit of the Spirit could be used for trading, and it could. In my head, I had these sort of immediate answers. So you had joy, obviously, is where we're heading, and love, I figured out love, but peace, who doesn't want peace in their trading? By the way, if you're watching this on the replay, please crank me down to 0.75. When I get excited, I kind of talk really fast. And there are some of you out there who have expressed concern that I am mangling the English language. Not entirely sure if slowing me down is going to help that. But anyway, I had several of these fruits in mind that I thought, I know exactly where I'm going to go with that. Long suffering. I mean, again, if you're a Saints fan like I am, long suffering, patience, and self control. Yeah, I didn't really expect. I wasn't prepared for what I was going to come up with for some of these traits that don't immediately lend themselves towards trading. But my goodness, these are the ones that just, honestly, these are the ones that hurt the most. So this week we're talking about gentleness. And you think, oh, well, what does that have to do with trading? You'd be surprised. So I hate to geek out on you guys, but I just absolutely love diving into the root words that these are written in. One of the, I don't want to speak for anybody other than me, but a disturbing trend I have seen in our culture today, especially when it comes to people quoting the Bible or non-Christians, or sadly even sometimes Christians, taking the Bible out of context. They act as if it was written in English, and it wasn't. It was written in Hebrew and in Greek, and that's about it. I do think that we as English speakers, if you're a non-English speaker, by the way, you are actually at a greater advantage than we English speakers are, or we only English speakers are, otherwise known as Americans. In that we just lose so much in the English. So the Greek word here for gentleness is proates, and it means a couple of different things. It means gentleness and humility and meekness. And you think, well, meekness, that's not really a term that we hear about much these days. It almost kind of has a negative connotation. Until you think that, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. My goodness, inheriting the earth, that'd be a fantastic thing, unless there's some spots you don't want to inherit. But think of the rental income for inheriting the earth. But meekness has this sense. It was first brought up in the Old Testament, and it was a sort of a mild disposition as they reflect on their reliance on God. And it's this gentleness of spirit. And you think, well, how could this translate into trading? What would meekness look like when it comes to traders? By the way, if you have any questions, if you want me to slow down, the audio's terrible, put that in the chat if you would. Let me know where you're from, by the way. What would meekness look like in trading? And one of the key factors that I have, in my experience, learned when it comes to studying some of these words or ideas that we don't normally think about during the day is, what does this mean? Think about its opposite. Sometimes its opposite is easier to understand than the word itself. So what's the opposite of a meek trader? Well, probably somebody like this, right? This is a wild trader. What's this guy's day like? What is this guy's friend? Now, obviously, this is a pit trader. These don't exist anymore. But this is the opposite of meek as a trader. What would a meek trader look like? This is what AI thinks a meek trader would look like. And uh, I wonder which one of these two goes home at the end of the day feeling well, better about themselves. I wonder which of these two has family that likes to hear about their trading day, and which one doesn't have a family that likes to hear about their trading day. Which one have I, sadly, been before? I've been that one. Working on that one. So, much like trading is a skill, we went over this in one of the shorts this past week. All of these fruits, remember what we talked about in the first episode. If you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to go back. The 9 fruits of the Spirit, in my opinion, are broken down into the top 3, which God gives us, and the bottom 6, which we have to practice. So meekness, gentleness is something that we practice. And we have to do it intentionally. We have to develop it. But like any skill, I learned how to juggle badly as a teenager. It was a skill that you have to practice, and meekness is the same thing, gentleness. One of the most amazing one of the most amazing phrases I ever heard when it comes to developing any skill. How you do anything is how you do everything. And so these things we're talking about, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, if you have them in your personal life, it's going to bleed over into your trading life. And if you can develop them in your trading life, it will bleed back over in your personal life. So work on developing these things. Fantastic verse here. This is Jesus. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle," talk about gentleness of spirit, "and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls." I mean, I love that turn of phrase, rest for your souls. I mean, rest for my soul, yes. Rest for my mind, yes. Rest for your brain. I woke up at 2:30 this morning because my brain apparently was done sleeping and needed to start thinking. I mean, I talk a lot to other traders in my book and other forums about the emotions that we all hear, and people have different terms for them. I call them my barrel of monkeys, and my task as a trader is to keep my barrel of monkeys, my copyright infringement barrel of monkeys, quiet long enough, just sort of give them a banana and stick them in the corner for 10 minutes while I can do my trading. Sadly, so many of these emotions and so many of these negative character traits are, instead of trying to quiet them down, are like stuffing methamphetamines inside the bananas and handing them to them. How do we develop this as a trader, this quietness, this gentleness as a trader? Well, what is the quality that we're looking for? It's humility. That is one of the best ways to do it. And again, a good way to look at humility. What is its opposite? Oh, you can see right there. Guys, pride, now that I have written this down, it's not actually universal suffrage. That would be voting. Pride is universal, and we all suffer from it. Some of us more than others. And my goodness, pride is like a Swiss Army knife of negative character traits. You can take it with you anywhere. It can do all manner of different things. I mean, pride is just so versatile. Pride can ruin any situation. You would think, well, there are some situations in life that can't be ruined. No, pride can do it. There are lots and lots and lots of examples in the Bible of pride, but my absolute favorite is King Nebuchadnezzar, that reigned over the Babylonian Empire. At the time, he was king of the world, king of the known world. He was the peak. And right prior to this verse, a year prior to this verse, he had been given a prophecy about himself, that he would be driven from the castle and that he would eat grass like a cow and he would lose his mind, that kind of thing. So here we are a year later, and Nebuchadnezzar, pick it up in Daniel 4:30 here, it says, "And the king spoke, saying, Is this not great Babylon that I have," I'm doing a bad accent for King Nebuchadnezzar here, "that I have built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power and for the honor of my majesty." My. Again, I don't want to geek out too much. That Hebrew word there for spoke isn't like what I'm doing now. That word is specifically used for when you are answering someone. Who's he talking to? Right? There's no one else in the story. There's no other person in this story in the room. Now, there's probably servants in the room. That's not what a king would have been doing, right? Who's he talking to? The only two commentators I have seen that made sense, one, he's talking to his God, and two, he's talking to God. Neither of those is a good idea. I mean, He is saying, hey, God, last year you said I was going to be driven from my palace. And look at this palace. This is the palace of the great Babylon that I built for myself, and me, my. Toby Keith had that song. It was not a good idea. Talk about pride. We all know that person who somehow manages to turn the conversation towards themselves. It's like they're waiting for a pause in the conversation so they can dive in. That was a clip from Doctor Who number 12, Peter Capaldi, and someone's talking to him. He's like, I'm sorry, I take little naps in my head till it's my turn to speak, right? There are so many people that we've run across that are like that. All they want is to talk about themselves, and they're just waiting for you to take a breath, and they dive right in. Have I ever been that person? I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, I have been, am. I refer to my previous statement. I don't want to talk about it. So, continuing on, King Nebuchadnezzar. I love this. While the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven. Do you wonder who that could be? King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it has been spoken. Remember, a year ago, I already told you. The kingdom has departed from you. And it says, next verse, it says that they drove him out of the palace that very hour. And within an hour or two, he was out of his mind, out of his castle, and out back in the pasture, eating with the cows. Now, I don't want to chase a rabbit too much here, but I wanted to speak to some of you out there and speak on this topic. So Nebuchadnezzar obviously was not a follower of God, of Jehovah back then. He did recognize God when he got his mind back and his castle back, but God was using him in judgment of Israel. I want to talk about this element of provision here. Again, I'm taking a departure from the lesson. God could have just judged him and killed him and he moved on to his son, right? But he didn't. He actually provided for him. He kept him safe, right? The prophecy was the tree trunk, and it was have a band around it, right? The trunk was still going to be there, still going to be alive, just constrained. He kept him safe. And how do we know this? So it says that he was out back eating grass for 7 seasons, 7 times. And unless that's 7 days, and there's nothing to say that it was most likely 7 years. Humans can't live on grass. Matter of fact, I mean, humans would actually be better off eating nothing than eating grass. Grass will do all manner of horrible things to your stomach. So even in his judgment, even this ungodly king, God took care of him. So you think, well, does God only take care of Christians? Well, we have an example right here that God takes care of anyone that he needs to take care of. And so here's the king that if this was a reality show, we would all be applauding the comeuppance of King Nebuchadnezzar and hoping he, is voted off the island. But God knocked him down a peg or 10, gave him some time out in the pasture, and then brought him back, brought his mind back, God took care of him. And this is just an example of God will take care of you because he's God, not because you're you. Sorry, back to the lesson. Again, we talked about a minute ago. I said if this was a reality show, we'd all be like, yay, down with the king. The previous occupant of the title, can't occupy a title, the previous holder of the title, world's greatest king, wrote this in Proverbs. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Now, by the way, how many of you out there thought this verse said pride goeth before a fall? I know I did. So many verses that are out there, they're like, I'm remembering this thing wrong. Haughty spirit. All right, that is the exact opposite of this mild disposition. Now, this is something that, especially as traders, we have to be careful for. Losses are all well and good. We can handle those. We don't get the big head with losses. But have you ever had that big win or a string of wins? I remember telling my trading partner this past week, hey, look at this pound U.S. trade. I got 5R on this thing. I would like to think that I told him in a humble way. But for young traders, for beginning traders, for struggling traders, sometimes a big win leaves you 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Who sang that song? I think it's George Jones. 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And that is almost worse than a loss, because then you'll go out and do horrible things. But that's pride speaking. That's pride ready to goeth before destruction, right? We think pride goes before the fall. That's what I thought I remembered it as. But it comes before destruction. I mean, A follow is one thing. Instruction's a whole different thing. So what's the answer here? Again, let's go back to this meek and mild disposition and spirit we're trying to achieve as traders. Right? You need to cultivate it actively, like you're learning how to juggle. First and foremost, remember, it's not about you. We talked about this at the very beginning. Your why, the reason you are in trading to start with, has to be stronger than everything else. It has to be stronger than your how. It has to be stronger than you. Right? I am overcome with a yearning, a passion for traders like me, for fathers, for heads of households to use trading as a way to lift their families up out of their financial situation and put them on a path towards financial security and financial freedom. And you have to keep that in mind. It's not about me. Yes, this was a fantastic trade. Praise God, this was a fantastic trade. I now have more money for my family's future. But it's not about me. I have to just constantly remember that. Moment by moment, trade by trade. Put something on your wall that says it's not about me. If I have a good trade, it's not about me. When you're talking to your group of three, it was either last week or the week before, we talked about you need those three people. You need your mentor, your guide. You need your fellow traveler, your partner, your friend who's in this at the same level as you are, and your beginning traveler, the person you're helping grow. When you're talking to those people, pride is going to be an issue. When you're talking about your losses, you're going to have to swallow your pride. And when you're talking about your wins, you're going to have to swallow your pride. You're going to swallow your pride. Period. It creeps in when you don't know about it. Prayer helps. Perspective. Oh my goodness. Keeping things in perspective. And you think, well, what does that mean? Okay, so you bought Acme, and Acme went up $1, and you sold Acme. Woohoo! I grabbed $1 out of that move. Yeah, but that other guy ran into a burning building to rescue some puppies, right? Keep what you're doing in perspective. Yes, you are trying to help your family out. Trade by trade, a little perspective. But prayer, obviously, start your day off with prayer and thankfulness, and you're not going to have a problem. The other thing is your focus. How much focus am I putting on myself, and how much focus am I putting on something else? So when you focus on yourself, I love to garden. I love growing tomatoes. I've got a whole other channel that I haven't touched in 10 years about cows and tomatoes. So this whole idea of fertilizer and anti-fertilizer is applicable here. Your focus, when you focus on yourself, you are planting fertilizer. You're fertilizing your pride. Your inattention, your neglect causes your pride to wither. And humility, if you develop humility, it actually kills pride. And humility is what fertilizes the ground, the good ground for the meekness of spirit, that gentle trading spirit that we're going after. It's humility. It's what causes that to grow. So how, bringing this full circle, how do we put this into practice day by day? That's the best word for it. Practice. Every day. Put it in your trade plan. I love a checklist. I love a spreadsheet that says do this, and I have one for one of my strategies. I think it's the one that I'm giving away on the YouTube channel. You got the verses at the top. Put it as a checklist before you do anything. Pray. Or if you're not a Christian, or you're whatever the Klingon religion is, one of these days I'm going to find out what the Klingon religion is so I can start referencing it as the generic religion. If you're a follower of that religion, just list what you're thankful for. Get your frame of mind off of you before you even start. Then run down your list, and at the bottom, right as you're ready to close out your trades, close out your platform, close out your computer, do it again. Pray, be thankful. Intentionally practice intentional thankfulness. You absolutely cannot be prideful if all of your focus is on somebody else. It's impossible. And when you do that, let others know. Social media, for all of the issues, and I realize that this is social media, for all of the issues that the world and people and parents and teenagers have with social media, it is a fantastic forum for like-minded people to support one another. Go in some group. Okay, if you're a member of Darwin X, go into the Darwin X group and say, I am so thankful for this trade that happened today. It led to this, and my family can do this as a result. Let others know, because it's going to encourage them to do the same thing. Do that every single day. Practice intentional thankfulness before you start to trade and after you're done trading, every single day for a week. And see where your mind is at the beginning of the next week. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you for being here. That is it for today. Next week is faithfulness. This one actually surprisingly gets into the nitty-gritty of trade plans and back testing and all of that. Again, if you have any prayer requests, please send them to me, and we'll be sure to include that on our list. But until then, guys, I will see you all next week.